Welcome to Roden Tomatoes. I'm Ben Roden.
And I'm Brady Tomatoes.
And this is a show where we talk about movies,
magic, and Muppets.
Today, we are joined by a very special guest.
Very exciting. This is a callback to our Predator Badlands episode. We really love Predator Badlands, and Ben became obsessed with it. And so he went on a journey.
I was on a journey. I was working my way through a death planet, and out of the bushes appeared Britton Watkins, the constructed language expert behind the Yautja language in Predator Badlands and a bunch of other stuff. Britton, thank you for being with us. This is super exciting. You are our first official Roden Tomatoes guest, so congratulations.
Oh, wow. Well, I want guest number one then up on the screen. Better edit that in. No, I'm very happy to be here. This should be fun. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Absolutely. So, as Brady mentioned, we talked through the movie. One of the things that stuck out to us was this language. I love the idea of constructed languages, have for a long time. So getting this opportunity to talk to you is really cool. Can you tell us kind of how you found your way into this industry and kind of how just sort of your journey into this line of work or this passion?
Sure. I've always been, since I was 13 when I started learning Latin, I've been interested in foreign language, and I dabbled in Latin one summer and then started learning Spanish. And so, but this is for my teenage years, I've been interested in other languages, non-English languages, and started teaching myself Japanese at 14, 15, and ended up living and working in Japan for a long time. So language has always been an extra important layer in my life, I would say. As I was becoming an adult, it was becoming an important thing to me. And once I was kind of back from Japan and settling back into work in the U.S. and doing some consulting and whatnot, I was studying the Thai language with a bunch of friends. And the teacher got pregnant and had to quit. Our tutor left us, so I was kind of without a hobby language. And I stumbled across the fact that there was going to be an invented language, a constructed language in the Avatar movie, in Jim Cameron's Avatar 1. And that Paul Frommer created that. And so I learned Na'vi, and I became a good friend of Paul's over the next year, and now 15 years later, we have Thanksgiving at each other's house and that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's rad.
I got into it through the interest in language in general, and then the community that was learning Na'vi. And then in 2012, I think it was, I worked for the first time with J.J. Abrams on coaching Zoe and the Klingons on Star Trek Into Darkness. And so that was my first time on set and tutoring people in person and via Zoom and all that stuff. So I did not create Klingon, but I taught them how to speak Klingon. So the creator of Klingon is Mark Okrand. Yeah.
Okay. So is that, when I think of invented language or conlangs, I think obviously of Tolkien, because he was a linguist.
Yes.
Is Klingon the first sort of full language invented for fiction? Or, I mean, I guess not fiction, obviously, because Tolkien, but for a TV show or a movie?
It was the first one that got a lot of pop culture attention for kind of my generation, your generation. Yes. I mean, there were others. Victoria Fromkin created Pakuni for Land of the Lost.
Oh, wow.
Which was on when I was young. You might have been very, very young, or maybe not even seen Land of the Lost.
Is that the show with that kind of creepy ape? I think his name is Stink or something, but he's just the creepiest looking puppet creature.
The Pakuni are a kind of hairy, not quite as hairy as Cousin It.
Yeah.
But very hairy kind of...
it's like a mix between a baby doll, Sasquatch, an orangutan, and just a fever dream. It's very, very terrifying. Okay, very cool.
There was a language created by Victoria Fromkin at UCLA for that. Even before Star Trek's Klingon, I think.
Yeah.
I actually made a documentary also about the phenomenon of people creating languages. It's a full 1.5-hour documentary. And in that, I talk about, the fact that generally those of us in the Conlang community now think of Tolkien as the kind of grandfather or great-grandfather of conlanging in our age.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been doing it all the way back to the 1100s with Hildegard of Bingen in Germany. And I mean, it's been going on for a long time in a documented format.
Man, I need to delve into that. That's
but
cool.
the documentary is called Conlanging, the Art of Crafting Tongues. And maybe you could pop up a image of that so that people could go find that. You can watch that online.
Yeah, we can include links to that in the description and show notes and stuff.
Yeah, it's about 1.5 hours long, and it does I'm bragging, but it does a good job of explaining conlanging. What is conlanging? I made it with the idea of, how do I explain to my grandmother what it is that I'm doing for my hobby? So it's for an average viewer, not for a nerd specialist. But it's a fun watch.
That's
and no
fantastic.
Violence. It's hard to find a movie these days with
it's
no violence,
true.
but there's no violence in it whatsoever.
It's very true. So let's jump back into your experience. So when you were working with J.J. Abrams, was that a connection through Paul?
I think so, yeah. They were looking for somebody to teach Zoe Saldana and the Klingons in the film how to speak their lines.
Yeah.
And Paul was not free or available or didn't feel like he knew enough about the, Star Trek universe to get involved in that. So he sent them my way, and I traveled down to LA and met with the producers originally. Yeah. And then, started doing that almost immediately. But that was a long time ago now. It's hard to believe it's that long ago.
Yeah. Time flies. Awesome. So tell us kind of from that's I guess sort of the jumping off point. How did Predator come about? Was it sort of a series of products in between? How did you kind of end up with Predator?
Well, again, that was an introduction from Paul. They reached out to him initially, I think, and they were out looking, I think, competitively to find somebody to do that. And Paul suggested they talk to me. Long before that, I mean, from 10 years ago, I've been working on Star Citizen, which is a massive, online player game that has multiple languages, multiple cultures and languages in it that I've invented over the years for them. So by the time Predator came along, I actually had already worked on Andrew Stanton's In the Blink of an Eye, which is premiering on Hulu at the end of the month. But you will be able to watch soon. And I worked on, I won't tell you exactly what, but I worked on language in that film as well.
Very cool.
And then Predator came along. And as I was working on Predator Badlands, I learned about Predator Killer of Killers and ended up portraying the warlord at the end of that animated
You're kidding!
movie.
That was you? With the like xenomorph cloak?
Yeah, can you believe it? I'm 9 foot tall and I have like alien spikes on my back.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. Was that your first voice acting gig?
I was in Star Trek Into Darkness, ordering them to land their ship.
Okay.
But that's uncredited. That didn't show up on IMDb. But yeah, I had to stand in the middle of the set when everybody was hungry.
Yeah.
To record my lines, ordering them, land your ship right now. So, but that was technically, I guess, my first on-screen performance, but the first credited one is as the warlord in Killer of Killers. And then, of course, the whole time that was going on, I was interacting with Demetrius, training him to be Deck, and And then there were some other folks who ended up not being the final voice performers in the movie and all that kind of stuff. So it was quite a roller coaster ride. It really was, but a really great one, and one that I'm incredibly thankful for.
Very cool.
Well, the final product is amazing. I think it would be cool to kind of jump into your process. One of the things that I think we mentioned in our last episode and have talked about is the sort of physiological component of a language, and how cool it was that it felt like, oh, this is what a predator would sound like given the actual, physical apparatuses at his or her disposal. So that was really, really cool. Tell us about, and maybe we just use Yautja as sort of the jumping off point or the example case. You get this ask, where do you start? Like, what is the step one of thinking about a constructed language?
Well, I started by looking back through what was already out there, what had happened since 1987. And I think Ben Rosenblatt sent me one brief clip, of the stuff from the third movie or something like that, So I started there. I listened to that and I'm like, okay, there is nothing grammatical in here. Like my ear cannot find anything that would map to the human notion of how you would have syntax or where you would divide words up and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this is just a kind of atmospheric inspiration. And there was in the past, and I mean, it still exists, fan versions of Yautja where people have named things and their phrases and whatnot online. But again, talking about the physiology, that particular language did not take into account that they don't have lips and that they don't have teeth like we do, a dental ridge that you can put your tongue against and make sounds.
Yeah.
Sounds like we can make in English.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I just, as a conlanger, I am not really willing to make sounds that have B's and M's and F's and V's in them if it doesn't seem like natively it would be easy for them to produce those sounds. So in the first thing that I proposed to Dan, I already stripped out anything that was, bilabial that you have to have lips to make. And
that's amazing.
And I had come up with the sound that you've heard Demetrius make many times on screen. It's down deep in the throat and it's ingressive articulation, which means you suck the air in. You don't blow the air out. So it's something we don't normally do in human speech. And I thought, okay, if he can nail this, if he can make this sound, then we'll have something quite unique that I don't know existing in any other conlang. I mean, there's some similar unusual clicks and things in other conlangs, but not that particular sound for the produced in that way in those contexts. So anyway, he was able to do it, and Dan thought it sounded cool, and so we just kind of started there with a prototype that I came up with that took their physiology, their mouth parts and throat parts, as we can imagine them reasonably, into consideration, and we just started from there. And occasionally Dan was like, that word sounds kind of like Mandarin, and I would look at the word and I would be like, there's not a single sound for Mandarin except the vowel in the
You're
word.
not even close, Dan.
But anyway, we after an initial period of getting used to the dialogue and his preferences and whatnot, we just went with it. And once they were once they were shooting in New Zealand, and Demetrius was on set every day, just, spouting off all of his lines, over and over again. So many lines. I think there are over 160 lines of Yautja dialogue in the movie.
Wow.
the crew just got used to it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's speaking Yautja," and like it just sounded like Yautja to them, and he's like, "Oh, he's okay, he's speaking Yautja, so just let him talk."
Yeah.
And we really didn't have a lot of other kind of corrections or things that needed to change until we got to the very end, and there were some notes from the international folks that were like, "These words sound like profanity in Russian. And we can't have
cursing.
these words in the movie in Russia.
Yeah.
So can you do something about that?" There were I think 2 or 3 examples of stuff that at the very end. But basically it just, the crew and Dan and everybody from the studio who went there to observe got used to what Yautja sounded like.
Yeah.
And when things changed along the way, when the dialogue changed, I just kept the phonological rules and kept the grammatical rules and changed, invented new lines to go along with what the subtitles needed to say.
So you are, I mean, you should probably have a writing credit as well, right? Like it's beyond just, hey, say this. You're in consultation in terms of like, how can we rephrase this in a way that uses different words? That's really cool.
Well, I mean, it's technically not right. It's technically not writing the story. I mean,
Sure.
I never suggested to Dan, "Oh, in this scene, he needs to say QBR instead of XYZ."
Sure.
I never suggested changes to the subtitles. Occasionally I would say, okay, this is a very kind of loose interpretation of what the subtitle says. This is a Yautja colloquial version of what you want the subtitle to say, but it still means the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the meaning, not the words, right? So
That is actually one of the things I was curious about. Are there Yautja like idioms that you wrote that then were translated into English? Are Yautja using metaphors that a human wouldn't use, for example?
They do make distinctions that humans don't make, or that we don't make in English. I mean, the subtitles were in English for what I saw, so they make distinctions like different words for kill. So if they are killing prey, that's hua. If they're like somebody massacres a group of people outside of the rules of the Yautja Codex, then that's ngang. That's a different verb, completely different verb.
So like kill and murder kind of distinction like in English, right?
That's such a cool cultural consideration. I think of like how, I don't know if this is actually true, but the adage is that like the Inuit have, 20 different words for snow. It would make sense that this killing culture would have all these different, versions of kill. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have different words in English too. We have, homicide and murder and other, I mean, legal words that have legal ramifications, but they have words that have cultural ramifications too. And the word for blood, for example, like the blood flowing through their veins, they have a different word for that than the blood that comes out of prey that they hunt. So, other things, I mean, interesting things about their language. It's hierarchical and it's very a meritocracy. You have to earn your standing in the clan and earn your standing in the society. He doesn't become Deck of the Yautja until the very end of the movie. He won't call himself Deck of the Yautja until he's earned that cred. So, there are distinctions in the pronouns when you talk about other people. When you address somebody as you can do that politely or you can do that pejoratively, meaning that it's built into the word for you. Like you suck is built into the word for you.
So rather than having like an honorific, you have a whole pejorative sort of case. That's way cool.
Well, I mean they have both basically. Okay. I mean they have a kind of, they can do both. They can talk down to you, or they can be polite to you, or they can, talk up to you, depending on combinations of pronouns and the way they use the verb to be.
So, Britton, I also speak Japanese, and so that's a common thing in Japanese, right?
It's
so did you
very
take
complicated
inspiration
in
from
Japanese,
like, Japanese like kind of hierarchy when you're thinking of that? Like many different ways to say the same thing, but just in a different.
Not specifically about the way it works in Japanese, no, but the concept of it is the same. And I also speak Thai, where you change things depending on who you're talking to and level of respect and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In Thai, it changes too based on the sex of the person you are or you're talking to. That doesn't happen in Yautja. But the way it works is tailored for Yautja culture, though, not for Japanese culture.
Yeah.
But I do know that kind of thing exists because I speak Asian languages, and it even happens in French and German and Spanish. There are different words for you. If you're being polite to somebody or being familiar with somebody. So it's a different system, but it's conceptually similar. Not important to us so much in English, but it is very important in other cultures.
So one of my questions that I had was like, were there current languages that influenced the way that like Yautja was grammatically formed? It seemed like Japanese structure.
It's different from English. In Japanese, the verb always comes at the end.
At the end,
invariably, the verb is always at the end. In Yautja, the verb is like English; it's in the middle, but the object and the subject are reversed. So in Yautja, the verb for to be is it's the rolled R, a breathy rolled R. So in Yautja, you don't say I am Yautja, you say Yautja I am, which is Yautja, chish. So you reverse, chish is the word for I or me.
Okay.
And it's I when it's the subject and it's me when it's the object. So the word doesn't change, the word chish doesn't change. But the word order is not English.
Right.
It's reversed from English. But we didn't have a lot of time to come up with a very complicated grammar. By the time they hired me, there was like, these 3 things have to be written on the wardrobe for deck, and these things have to go on these new weapons, and this has to go on that, and this has to go. Like, there was no time to have something with a complicated declension system or verbs like out here. I had to make up a verbal system where when I need the future, I will make a marker for the future. When I need the past, I will make a marker for the past. It was like literally that quick. I didn't have time to spend days and days coming up with a complicated grammar. And, for a fan base, a complicated grammar is not necessarily what you want either.
Right.
Sure.
It's easier for fans to learn after the movies are out, after, the kind of fan culture has formed. It's easier if the grammar is easier too. And, there are things about Yautja grammar that will seem very alien to a speaker of English or to a speaker of French or to a speaker of Mandarin or to a speaker of Japanese. But I'm more interested in kind of keeping it alien for everybody.
Right.
So it's not that I want it to be like Japanese or I want it to be like a Polynesian language or I want it to be like an African language. It's that I want it to be alien, seeming alien for everybody. And when I read comments online about, people hearing the language in the film, everybody's like, oh, that sounds like Hungarian, or that sounds like Finnish, or that sounds like, it sounds like an African language. So everybody should hear something different in it. That's what I like about it. And of course people make comparisons to Klingon because they're big people with like gravelly voices, so just from the physiology of everything, it kind of sounds like Klingon, but it's not Klingon, and people who speak Klingon cannot understand Yautja, I guarantee you. So it's for me, it's first and foremost, make it fit that culture.
Right.
And if they're borrowings from human languages, for example, the nga sound, the word for no in Yautja is ngai, ngai. It sounds like it starts with an N if you're not accustomed to listening to it, but it actually starts with an NG, which I was fairly sure that an actor from New Zealand would be able to say, because Maori words, the native Maori language in New Zealand has words that start with NG. I mean, they can end with NG also, but well, they don't in Maori, but in English they can end with NG.
Yeah.
And they start with NG also in Maori. So I was like, okay, whoever the actor is, if they're born and raised in New Zealand, they'll probably be able to say these words.
I was curious about this. So I did. Because I was curious about whether Demetrius spoke Maori, because in that clip that we'll show later, he like his accent was like, oh yeah, like if he is already bilingual, I wonder if that gives him a leg up in understanding how to make some of these sounds.
Yeah.
He's from a multicultural family, Tongan and Samoan, and was raised in New Zealand, and speaks English as his primary first language. I don't really know what he knows from the other languages, but his last name, Koloamatangi, has the last syllable of his name, as he pronounces it, is that sound.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
that's
a
already in his locker.
I didn't know who was going to play which actor was going to play the role when I first started doing this. But yeah, coincidentally, the sound that's challenging for English speakers typically, and certainly in the United States, typical, is in his own last name. So, it was easy for him to say it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hold on one second. I'm just going to tell these guys.
We've got some loud people outside. Sorry. Cool.
Okay, well, let's start over. Welcome to Roden Tomatoes.
Don't you dare. We've lost the flow completely. The question I was going to ask you, Britton, was it Dan's plan throughout to have Dec only speak Yautja in the movie? Because I that's one of the things I loved from a creative perspective, is him speaking Yautja kept him a little bit alien. I think having him transition to English might have taken me out of it.
Right.
Anyway, was that the plan from the beginning?
It's the only plan that I'm familiar with. I mean, I if there was some version of the script where he started learning English and talking to Thea in English, I don't know about that. I mean, that was never on my radar. So, yeah, Demetrius as Dec was always going to speak Yautja through the entire thing. And of course, interacting with his father and his brother.
Right.
Of course, that's going to be in Yautja. I mean, what if that were in English? How weird would that be? I mean, you would have to use the conceit that, oh well, we're just hearing it. They're speaking Yautja, but we're hearing it as English, and I don't think it would have worked incredibly well for these particular aliens in this particular alien dramatic context, for them to be speaking anything but a native language that was very weird sounding to the audience.
So he does say wolf, right? Like like the English word wolf, because that's kind of a big part of like his turning point, right? But like as I'm saying wolf, I'm having to use like my lips. So you were saying like you wanted to try to avoid stuff like that. So when there is something like wolf, that becomes a very pivotal point. Like, how do you...
Well, he says wolf is how he... Okay. He pronounces wolf. He tries to say wolf through his Yautja phonology as wolf. But it's not an F that you make with the tongue, with the teeth and the lips.
He's simulating the sound rather than making the actual sound.
But he also, at one point in the movie, Thea names Bud. And he says Bud, it's like he produces the B sound. But it's well documented, even from the first film, that they can mimic. They have some method. I don't know if it's the equivalent of like a syrinx in a bird, or I don't know how they do it. but they have some mechanisms for artificially mimicking non-native Yautja speech, and they do that, online in the films, I should say.
Well, he does that in the first movie, right? Doesn't
when
he?
He
parrots something that Arnold Schwarzenegger says. He says, "What the are you?" or something like that.
I think the idea is that they are good at mimicking the speech when they have speech of prey, so that they can trick the other prey. If there's other prey, like if there's a hunting party or there are other people whom they need to filter out of the equation, they mimic the speech of aliens. And, they have the gauntlet. They've got a wrist computer. That thing can probably, that thing is probably speaks 1,000 languages and can tell them what other people are saying. But again, I needed to develop for their native context and their physiological context and what made the most sense for that. And when he learns to say, there was also, I don't think I'll get in trouble for saying this, but there was also a story, Thea told him, a Viking story. Mm-hmm. And so he was having to pronounce Viking, I had to figure out how he's going to say Viking, and other things like that, where he didn't actually make a proper V, but that was all in the service of thinking about these two different paradigms. They can mimic things if they have to, and then they would filter certain words. Like even Thea, he calls Thea. It's not exactly a perfect TH. He just makes a breathy T, does the best he can.
Yeah.
But he doesn't pronounce her name exactly perfectly either. I mean, eventually I think he will learn to pronounce her name perfectly. But when he first says it, he just calls her Thea, and it's not exactly a Thea.
I'm just realizing now that this film posed a different challenge, because a lot of the other Predator films, they wear the mask a lot. And so there's probably some room to fudge some things, but where you're having to see like the little like mandibles moving and to you can't really fudge like the bees, or you can maybe get away with that if they were wearing a mask, because we're not like putting the movement of the mouth with the sound. So I feel like that's an extra challenge with this one, because he loses all his like technology to like the end, right? Like So just such a cool little detail.
Did you have any involvement with post-production in terms of like, this is how his quote unquote mouth should move when producing this sound?
The only involvement that I had with any of that directly, and it wasn't really direct, it was indirect, was early on, before they had any audio of Deck, any audio of Demetrius, I recorded a kind of series of 5, 7, I don't remember how many it was, sentences that had the more unusual sounds of the language in them. And I recorded that on the other side of this room, with a camera at me, and sent that in. And they sent that to the VFX people. Okay. Who then started prototyping what the mouth movements would look like on the actual rendered, CGI rendered face. But I at one point, somebody from Weta, I think, was like talking about that process in a different video, a podcast. And like, all of a sudden, my mouth came up on screen in this other podcast, and it was that video that they had early on to figure out how they're going to prototype things. So
jump scared by your own mouth. What a moment! That's hilarious.
I was shocked by my mouth's debut in that other podcast.
My mouth's debut.
That's really cool. So you sort of gave them the equivalent of the Quick Brown Fox in Yautja. So they had, here's kind of the sounds to expect. Here's all the sounds that you need to account for. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
I mean, Dan talked recently in a podcast about the minutia of going back and forth with the VFX teams about like what looked real and what didn't look real. But I was not involved in all of that. And honestly, I don't know how I could have helped them, because the woo sound, woo, W, is in Yautja, and we make that with our lips out here.
Yeah.
But it's woo is fundamentally just an ooh, a vowel with rounding.
With a little
clearly
air puff.
I had to, he's doing some kind of muscles in his throat that round his throat to make a W. It's just not out here, it's back in there. We had to imagine that they could make normal vowels and, all of that, because it's ultimately a human person playing this alien character, and they need the full range of performance, options to perform. So we had to imagine, a certain proximity, humanoid proximity to the human vocal track, but they clearly don't have lips, so having all these lip and teeth and tongue variation things that we do with our lips and teeth, I didn't think.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point about Demetrius' performance. Like, there is the aspect of, can I replicate these sounds? Can I remember lines in a constructed language? But then to apply that to a performance, I think is so impressive, and something that you just don't think about. He embodies it so fully that you forget that he's, how much heavy lifting he has to do.
Well, at some point on camera, we were visiting and reviewing some lines or something, and he said, yeah, I put the suit on, but I put the language on too. Like, he put on both of those things. Excuse me, I keep bumping my mic. I put on both of those things to prepare to be Deck on set. I've got all that stuff on my body, and I've got all the stuff in my throat, to sound like a predator, and look like a predator. So I took that as high praise, that
absolutely
he could put the language on, and then it helped him. He said it changes my posture and it changes everything when I have to perform in Yautja.
That's rad.
Absolutely. I can see why this becomes addicting, because language and culture are so intermeshed that, it's clear that so much thought goes into how this, how culture affects language and vice versa, how there's, physiology. There is, I know you said you don't deserve a writing credit, and it's not actually writing, but it adds so much to the world building to know that this has been thought through, and it's apparent on screen that it has been. So kudos to you. It's amazing stuff.
Well, I mean, to their credit, and by their I mean like the producers and Dan and everybody, they put my name and Alec Gillis's name way up high in the credits, because without the suit and without the voice, you didn't have any predators in this movie. It's the way they look and the way they sound is the way the audience experiences them, right?
Right.
So I felt very honored that they credited me as high up in the credit. Normally we're like down there with other crew, and, tucked in, and the next to last credit after all of the VFX people go by or something like that. But they put us way up high, and I really appreciated that.
That's awesome. So, well deserved.
Britton, I have a question. So when you're involved in a hobby, then and you see it. Like in the wild, right? Like you have more of like an eye or an ear for things. Like as a video editor, I see like, oh, that was like a really good cut. That was a really like well-timed cut. Like the pacing here works really great. So when you watch something like Dune, for example, where someone is speaking Fremen, right? Like are you able to be like, oh, okay, they're using similar words for these, like they've fully created this language, or did they just like take a line and make it sound alien? Are you able to do things like that with like your expertise in creating these like languages?
I am, but I would say if I'm watching Dune in the theater, I want to just disappear into the story and into the Fremen, and like I don't want to think about it. I just want it to sound alien, because it's supposed to sound alien to the audience, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, when I get it back home and I can stream it and pause and be like, oh yeah, that was the sound in Lisan al-Khaib, like that, then I can start deconstructing things and thinking about pronouns and thinking about verb forms and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't want to do that in the theater. In the theater, I just want to enjoy it.
Totally.
And, I talk about, every now and then, I talk about the word for I. I mean, we talked about it earlier today. The word is chish. So in so many sentences, we're always talking about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So in so many sentences in the film, Deck is like blah 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 chish, blah 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 chish, and they told me, Ben Rosenblatt told me, oh yeah, by the several days into the filming, we had all learned the word chish, because like it just repeats over and over again. So you, as human beings with any language, you pick up on the things that you hear over and over again. Yeah. So, like with Japanese, you're going to pick up on the verbal ending mas and des at the end of sentences, because it's like always at the end. There's like always, that sound is always there when somebody's speaking politely in Japanese. So you learn, even though you don't understand what they're saying, you learn that they are speaking Japanese because consistently it's always coming up des or mas at the end in Japanese. Well, it's often coming up chish, Chish. It's often coming up chish in Yautja because that's the word for I and the word for me. So you hear it a lot. If awesome. You are linguistically talented and curious, and you've got the subtitles as a reference, and you can pause and, when you're streaming at home or whatever, you can go down that nerd road if you want to. You can start learning the words, even if you don't want to commit to learning all the grammar and all that kind of stuff. And you can learn how to recognize whether it's legit Yautja or not based on
that is super interesting. I remember thinking when I watched Game of Thrones that is it Valyrian that the Khaleesi speaks. I remember thinking this must be a real constructed language because of daur. It seems like every sentence ends in daur, and I was like, okay, somebody has actually mapped this out.
I knew that it was grammatical because of daur also, and daur means no or not. So that's how you make something negative. But we put no or not usually, before. I don't do so and so and so, like it comes before. But I think in Valyrian, and I'm not a specialist, I don't speak it fluently, but I do know daur because it's always at the end when they're saying something is not so and so and so and so and so and so.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
I think maybe I mentioned this on email. I watched Badlands, and then I watched Killer of Killers at the gym, and I was on the treadmill. It was like unexpectedly moving to me, and I was on the treadmill just bawling to an animated Predator short. It was incredible. I loved it. So you mentioned when you get a film home, you can kind of pause and really nerd out. You shared this clip, and this is actually a clip that I saw that I shared with my wife. We were so excited that we got to talk to you that I was like, hey, look at this. It ties in so perfectly. So this is a clip of Demetrius and Elle Fanning giving an interview that involves the Yautja language. So.
You guys also obviously speak the Yautja native tongue in this movie. Do you have any favorite one-liners or phrases?
Demetrius knows the language better than me. I'm trying to think it's a lot of rolling of the R's.
A lot of the clicking. I think my one is the mantra, the Okay, fine. You get that.
They created the language for the film.
Yeah, it's legit. It's cool.
It's cool.
Oh man,
I love the apparent mismatch in Demetrius as a person versus the character he plays, because he's just so bubbly and nice, and it's fun to see how he's able to embody this predator.
This very violent language.
Oh, he is Demetrius Kolamatangi is one of the finest human beings alive on the face of the earth. I mean, he is a human being at his core, I promise you. So it was a big performance for him to pull off, being the rough and tumble deck. I mean, because he is an absolute star of a man. I mean, he's just so incredibly nice, so incredibly kind. And at the premiere, I was able to meet his family who were visiting from New Zealand. And I'm like, no wonder he's such a fine person, because they seemed absolutely the same. So it's just great it's great to have those human relationships and connections.
Yeah.
In the context of the film, because when you're watching it in the theater or at home streaming, you only know, all of that stuff. But in this clip, seeing him interact with Elle and everything like that—that's who they both are. They are they're incredibly cool people.
So cool.
Speaking of contrast, sounds like his family in real life is a little nicer than his family in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, not of this same earth. No, not of this same world. Definitely not.
He was drawing on no real life experience when he did this performance. He had to just make it up like the language that you did.
That's amazing. Okay, so break it down for us, Britton. So he is speaking Yautja. He's doing the sort of preamble kind of Yautja mantra that shows at the beginning of the movie. Is that right?
Yes. So in the film, it starts Yautja R. So again, everything has to be reversed.
Yeah.
So in the what he actually says in Yautja is pray to none, friend of none, predator to all, are the Yautja collectively, our society. So you have to reverse the order, but he says Hrus o Yaungak, pray to none. Ahlek o Yaungak, friend to none. Yaudok o Yauroi, predator to all. Hrre Yautjengen.
It sounds like the word for predator is related to Yautja. So what does Yautja actually mean in Yautja?
That's a great question. So Yautja means hunter.
Okay.
So the word Yautja means one who hunts.
Okay.
And when you talk about all of them as a culture or a society, you say Yautja Ngen. Ngen is a grammatical marker that means the collective generalization of whoever I was just talking about or whatever I was just talking about. So Yautja Ngen mean the Yautja collectively. But the word for predator in Yautja is Yaudok. And dok is a verb that means to reach in and rip the skull and spine out of your prey.
No, it doesn't.
So when they say predator, they are saying a spine removal expert.
That is
so
the
cool.
greatest thing I've ever heard. Oh my gosh, what a nugget. That is so cool. That is amazing.
So that was fun. I mean, that's the kind of metaphor, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was fun to do. But yeah, dok means to de-skull and spine your
That's
prey.
so rad.
So, but Yautja cha is TJA is the verb that means to hunt. So they are hunters. Their name for themselves is we are the hunters. We hunt.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But when they talk about a predator, what we consider a predator on screen, they focus on taking the trophy, and the word for predator is yaudok, and the thing that you rip out, the trophy, is yidok. It's a different word, but they both use the verb de-spine or harvest your trophy.
That is
so cool.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal stuff. Anything else you want to highlight in that mantra from a grammatical or from a construction standpoint, from a syntax standpoint?
From a grammatical point of view, the generic word for to be, whether it is he is or she is or it is or I am or you are, is hr. But if you are speaking honorifically, like we would say in Japanese, about something, then they say hooray, and hooray means that I am talking about this thing and I am honoring it, or I have good feelings about it.
Okay.
It's an honorific. So the normal word for the way to say I am Yautja is Yautja chish, but in this special opening in this mantra, he ends it by saying hooray Yautja ngen, meaning I am honoring the Yautja collectively by saying that they are prey to none, friend to none,
got it,
predator to all, potential predator to all.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. And the other little nugget that I'll tell you is that Alec Gillis has always been one of the biggest friends to the Yautja and the productions and the predators. So the word for friend in Yautja is Ahlek. So it's his name as an Easter egg.
He's immortalized
in Yautja. So yeah, Alec is immortalized in Yautja as Ahlek.
Achlek.
Which means cool. Friend in Yautja.
That's so cool.
That's phenomenal. That is amazing. Well, again, we could do this for 4 hours. I would love to pick your brain. We do like to involve Muppets in some way.
Yeah.
And we talked about some potential Muppet directions. What we like to do is typically like recast a Muppet movie. So you can talk about that as well. But yeah, I guess I would love to know if you've had any thoughts about Muppets and constructed language, whether that's like what character would work, what an actual Muppet language would sound like, etc.
Well, the humans are performing the Muppets, right? So
right.
I think unlike the constraints of the mandibles and the no dental ridge and all that kind of stuff, whether your mouth is made out of foam and whatever or not, it's not going to be all sounds, right? Somebody's going to perform it. So they would be able to say basically whatever. Sure. But in thinking about the Muppets from my youth, I think the language I would have the most fun with is developing the Snuffleupagus' native language. I think that would be a lot of fun, and it could be kind of moany and slow and but have different sounds in it than he would make speaking English. I think that would be fun. I think it would also be fun to like have a Predator Muppet where you like have to do your mandibles with your fingers over here and performing it. I can just see those felt dreads flying around and everything. I think that would be a lot of fun. And if I really were working on a big, maybe an episode of Pigs in Space, I would like to do an alien language for some aliens that show up in Pigs in Space. But what I really the thing that would be most intellectually stimulating to me would be to go back to Dark Crystal and think about that whole story and the way it ends and the separation and the Skeksis and all of that stuff. And think about the languages and maybe the way the Mystics would sound versus the Skeksis.
Totally.
When they get back together again, all of that stuff. That would be fascinating to me. But that requires, again, a big scientific world with culture and other stuff in it for me to really do my thing with it.
That's such a cool idea.
I would give the Snuffleupagus language a good go too. I think that could have some really fun
That's
stuff
fantastic.
in it.
You could do like kind of whale sounds, like drones. You could have him do some
Right.
trunk squeals.
Yeah, very
You'd have a lot of
nasally.
options.
Yeah, a lot of nasal stuff.
Man, I
Right.
love the Dark Tower too. I mean, you could do like a little mini tower of
Dark Crystal?
Sorry, Dark Crystal. Stephen
Dark
King on the
Tower.
mind.
I really like that Stephen King movie.
Dark
Yeah,
Crystal.
Dark Tower's a different
whole different thing.
Conlang maybe, but
Yeah, you could do like I love the idea of creating sort of the mother tongue, and then you have different dialects that split when the crystal splits. That's amazing. I love that idea.
yeah, that would be a fun thing to do. And those are technically Muppets, so
True.
you know,
Jim Henson Workshop.
I'm still on the playing field, right, with that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
totally, you are. Britton, what else do you want to pitch? I know you've got that documentary. We'll put a link up to. There's probably stuff coming down the pipe that you can't talk about yet. Is there anything we should be watching out for? Anything you're excited about? Any conlang related stuff in other media that's worth checking out?
Well, definitely Badlands starts streaming, so watch it. Get your notebook out and pause it if you're nerdy enough, and you want to pick out words and stuff. And you once you hear him use Yautja, de-spiner in context, that could be fun
Very
to
cool.
practice that sound. Every other year, there's an International Language Creation Conference.
Oh, really?
So I can send you the next one's going to be in Europe again. So people who really think they might want to start creating their own languages and get to know a bunch of other people who do that, you can go meet them in person at the International Language Creation Conference. So we'll get you a link to that too.
Very cool.
It's an unusual hobby, and sometimes it turns into unusual life experiences. And I encourage anybody who's tempted to give it a go and see what you think about it.
Wise words.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Do you have a sign off for us in Yautja? If I'm bidding someone farewell, what's the common goodbye?
I don't have a specific one, but I will say of this whole experience with you two today, Nyae, which is my honor or respect to you for making this possible today. Nyae.
Nyae to you
All
as well.
right. Thank you, Britton.
Thank you,
This
Britton.
was so cool, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Britton.